welcome to That's Runnable. How you getting on? Thanks for tuning in. Today we are talking about my first ever DNF. That stands for did not finish. I've never not finished a race before, and that all changed this weekend. So, what happened? What happened at Lone Wolf Southeast 2025, and why did I bail out? Why did I not finish? Well, we're going to go through that, so stick around. We also have another RunBiz segment for you. We had a RunBiz segment a couple of weeks ago, and we've got our second RunBiz segment, this time with Lee from INOV8. I love INOV8 so much, more now than ever before, to be honest, and you'll find out why in a bit. We talk about INOV8, the lakes, fell running. I think you'll like it. So, stay tuned for our second edition of RunBiz after I have a good old ramble about Lone Wolf. So, this weekend I had a crack at Lone Wolf Southeast. Last year in October I ran Lone Wolf Southwest, and that was my first attempt at any sort of backyard inspired ultra. The format at Lone Wolf is quite unique because it's a backyard inspired, but it finishes at 24 hours. So the final lap is actually a race, which is sort of secondary to just finishing it ultimately. It does make it more exciting at the final lap to be able to crown a winner with a 24-hour race instead of it just being never ending until someone runs a lap alone. It's a race on the 24th lap, which is fun. Anyway, I had my go this weekend at the Southeast version, which is obviously a different course. It's in Farnham, near Guildford, here in Surrey in the UK. It's a beautiful course. Had about 100 meters of elevation gain throughout the 6.7k loop. So nothing crazy. But of course, that does accumulate, and there's no way to make 160 kilometers easy. But today I want to talk a little bit about how that went, how the race went, and I guess how I'm going to do that is I'm going to first talk about how training has looked so far this year. So the sort of months prior to this weekend. I am then going to just talk about how I sort of approached this race in the weeks approaching. So we're looking at the months approaching, the weeks approaching, and then we're going to look at the days approaching. So some of the kind of preparations I was making with gear and shoes and nutrition and all that stuff. And then I will do my best to talk through how the event itself actually went. I don't think I'll be able to talk through sort of hour by hour. It's interesting. With a regular ultra marathon, maybe like a mountain ultra or something, you'd be able to kind of look at the profile of the race and then have memories according to maybe the aid stations of how everything was going. But given that this is just a loop on the hour, every hour, it's just the same loop, it's difficult to remember what happened at which loop. Like, you know, when did I have that peanut butter sandwich that made me feel amazing? I can't remember. But, you know, I'll try and do my best and talk you through some of the mistakes. I think I don't want to talk about this DNF as just all full of mistakes, because at the end of the day, I make mistakes in every ultra marathon. I think everyone makes mistakes in every ultra. There is no perfect execution unless you're a real elite. But I will try to be honest about where I went wrong, and I think ultimately the best lessons are the failures, are in the mistakes, are in what went wrong. So that's what I will focus on quite a lot of. But I also want to talk about what I think went well. I'll do my best to reflect fairly on the event. So, should we get stuck in? Let's do it. I want to give a special thank you to everyone who has either become a member or has purchased anything from the coaching hub. It is live. It was released last week, and it's got a few things on there. It's got a course called Getting to Know Your Body, which is like the fundamentals of understanding how to tune in with your body and how to move naturally and how to lay the foundation for good, sustainable running practice. It's also got the 5 key principles of running sustainably on there. I wonder if you can guess what those are. That's a 28-page PDF, which you can buy for $3.99, or you can become a member and obviously gain access to it. And then now there's also some more content on there about recovery, a subjective body audit of some kind, as well as the 3 key pillars of recovery. Go check it out. The membership is $21.50 per month or $2.15 per year if you want to pay up front. I really want this to become a repository of high value information. So thank you everyone who's supported so far. But if you want to go check it out, the link is in the description. It's that'srunnable.com/coaching-hub. Reset, reframe, and reconnect. So how has training looked so far this year? How has training looked so far this year? Well, to be honest, I haven't been able to get as much volume in as I would have liked. It's been quite a frustration this year of mine. I wanted to ramp carefully, but each time I've tried to increase my volume, something has come up, from falling over in Egypt and damaging my knee to an issue with my foot that I still don't fully understand, but it seems to kind of resurface if I wear narrow shoes, which actually is basically all shoes unless they are specifically designed to have a wide toe box. To getting the shingles, I got shingles and that set me back. That really knocked me back, stopped me from training for an entire week and then forced me to have to kind of ramp slowly after. And I've just been relatively cautious with my training ultimately so far this year. But I am also aware of some kind of unique challenges I have had to face because I am partially flat-footed. I'm a partially flat-footed ultra runner. And this is quite a unique foot issue that I have that I didn't know about until a year and a half ago. And has it was never really an issue until about 2 years ago. Basically, back in 2023, I got tendonitis in my foot from a race that I did, which was a B race. Frustratingly, it was a B race, and it was a race that was relatively flat compared to some of the other mountain ultras I would do. It was in Wiltshire, Race to the Stones. And so it meant that it was quite runnable. So I did that race at a pace, I guess, that I wouldn't do most other mountain ultras. I think that what that meant was that it led to a lot more impact on my tibialis posterior. And that led to tendonitis in my foot. And that was not fun. That set me back for about 9 months. And it stopped me from doing UTMB. I had a place at UTMB. And I was planning on doing that race and ramping up and going to UTMB and, fulfilling my dreams. But yeah, I guess getting this injury has exposed something I never knew about myself, or at least my feet. That is that I'm partially flat-footed. I've always been very focused on foot strength. Even when I was unaware of this issue, I was very focused on the right footwear and strengthening my feet and the importance of foot strength and all that stuff. But now that I have had issues with this, leading me to ultimately drop out of starting UTMB, and now having more strain in my foot from this ultra that I've just done this weekend, I am going to be taking this extremely seriously. People might suggest wear an insole, get some arch support. Some orthopedics might be helpful. I do agree. Some orthopedics could be helpful. But I do not want to become dependent on this. I want to have strong feet and strong connecting muscles so that I don't have to depend on this support, because I ultimately believe that will weaken the strength in my feet. So I've been managing this as well as I can, but it's definitely something I want to get on top of, be more disciplined about, and stop, I guess, pretending that it's not a problem. And if I'm being completely honest, I do sometimes find myself feeling like the world's unfair because, I'm like, oh, how come no one else has to deal with this? And I don't know anyone who has to really deal with this. And, if I didn't have this issue, then everything would be so much easier, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, well, that's life. We all have our own little unique differences, and we have to figure out how to do this stuff in the best way for us. So all of that is to say that I have approached my training quite cautiously this year. I have a big A race coming up, my first proper attempt at a 100 miler, and if I get to the start line, and I want to get to the start line because I have signed up for a 100 miler before and didn't get to the start line, and it was because of this issue. So I want to make sure I don't have that. And so I have been more cautious with my volume because of this unique issue. But I now am getting to a point after a few setbacks where I am able to be increasing my volume. Now, in the weeks approaching, because I had shingles about 5 weeks ago or something like that, in the weeks approaching 4 weeks ago, in the weeks approaching this race, I made the decision to not taper. Now, I am a big fan of tapering, so don't get me wrong on this one. If you're able to properly taper gradually for 2 or 3 weeks before a big event, that is great. That is powerful stuff. At a minimum, a 2-week taper is a very wise decision. For this race, though, I wanted to keep up my volume because I kind of felt like I'd been set back in previous weeks from being able to do proper volume. And so I wanted to keep my volume at a decent level, given that I hadn't actually been able to get up to satisfying levels this year for the reasons I've mentioned. And I thought I'd just be able to kind of make a call on the day during Lone Wolf about how much of the race I would actually do ultimately. I wasn't necessarily going into it thinking, I definitely want to complete this. But I mean, in truth, I was going into the race, I was thinking maybe I'll just do 15 laps and call it. And Lou, my girlfriend, had said maybe you should just do 100k and call it. But there was, of course, a huge part of me, a big part of me, the vast majority of what was going on in my head that just thought I could do the 24 nice and easy. It's little elevation, it's at a slow pace, etc., etc. Which brings us on to the next part. Preparation for the race in, I guess, the weeks and days prior. So, I completely underestimated this race entirely. Having done Lone Wolf Southwest in October and not having any injury-related issues from that race, really just got off completely scot-free, amazing, nothing wrong with me, was running the next day. I felt like I kind of really knew what I was getting myself into, I thought I could really take it easy throughout and nothing all that bad would happen. And, I was thinking, it differs from other normal races. By normal races, I sort of mean these mountain races all in one push. It differs from that because it's looped, and it's on the hour every hour, which means that it's slower than the usual pace I would go. You're not racing. You're just taking it very easy, and you're just, as long as you're moving at a certain pace, that's like, as long as you're moving faster than a walk 50% of the lap, you'll get in at like 50 minutes, which gives you 10 minutes of rest. So that felt easier. You're half the lap, maybe a bit more. 70% of the lap you're running, 30% you're walking. So it just felt like I could do it quite easily. Nothing bad would happen. I really felt that it wouldn't be all that taxing on the body, relatively speaking. The elevation gain was fairly minimal. The pace was slow. The frequent rests. Just a great race to have as a B race, and a race to test things and just be in that ultra environment. But I am clearly a fool. I am clearly a fool that needs a hit of his ego. Of course, this race is difficult. There is no way of making 160k easy. I guess I seriously needed some humbling. Well, I got it. So you can thank the ultra gods for that one. So I was approaching the race with complete underestimation. So let's talk a little bit about gear and nutrition. What was I thinking? Well, I needed some shoes that had a little bit more cushioning. Currently my shoes, across the board, the ones I like anyway, are fairly minimal. They don't necessarily have enough protection underfoot, or at least like enough sort of foam and cushioning. And for the longer distances, I do think that is important. I've done an extremely long race in ultra lone peaks before, and that just made the day a lot more difficult. So from that lesson, I have always wanted, when doing anything beyond 100k, to have something that was a bit more supportive. So I took some New Balance, what they called, I can't remember what they're called now, but I didn't like them anyway. They're these New Balance shoes that have a lot of foam, and they were just squeezing my foot into them. I wore them on the first 2 laps and then wore them again later on after swapping and sacked them off. But I had the Trail Flies as well from INOV8. I wanted the Trail Fly Maxes, which INOV8 have just released and are actually behind me, if you can see, because they just arrived today. Thank you, INOV8. Amazing stuff. So I've been exceptionally excited about having those, because the Trail Flies are amazing shoes, and these Maxes would just allow for that additional cushioning. So they're like my favorite shoes in my rotation, plus the extra cushioning. And then I had some Ultra Olympus 6s as well, but they in reality are a bit too small for me, so I didn't even try them on. Nutrition. What were we doing for nutrition? Well, I had Sturka products. They were great for carb mixes and a few rice bars and electrolytes. Solid kind of array from Sturka. And I also went for a bit of a shop into the supermarket, and I got a bunch of fruit, some Huel, which is like a nutritionally complete, in inverted commas, drink. We got crisps and sweet snacks and all sorts, just options, loads of options. I wanted options. And then I got back from the shop and I sort of laid it all out on my kitchen counter, and it didn't look necessarily like enough, so I made some peanut butter jelly, peanut butter jam sandwiches, which made it feel like I had at least a proper sandwich there for a couple of meals instead of just like bitty, unhealthy fare. I wanted some like proper bread or something. So I felt like I had my nutrition prepped. I felt good about the amount of nutrition I had. Other gear. What other gear did I have? So other than shoes, I had the van. So I had this luxury of being able to kind of just be messy with everything I had, taking a lot of stuff. So I brought a load of layers, a load of options, changes of socks, had some new shorts with me, which I was excited about, and just a lot of kit. So I was able to take everything. The idea as well was that I would sort of take excess amounts, and maybe for a few laps I would test some stuff for a future race, for Madeira, for example. That actually didn't end up happening. I just sort of took it with me, but then decided, sack that off. I don't really need to practice carrying poles. I'll just run this race. So that's the sort of breakdown on pre-race kind of preparation. I underestimated the race entirely, which is just a lesson hard learned, but I wanted to admit that from the start. The shoes, I had a few options, but I ended up really having the New Balance and Trail Flies, but it was the Trail Flies that really just saved me. I think it was maybe the 4th lap, 5th lap. As soon as I put on the Trail Flies, wow, it was just the level of difference in comfort was next level. And as soon as I put them on, although there's less cushioning, and it was like a more minimal shoe, I was like, I don't care. I'm wearing this the whole time. This is so much more comfortable. So Trailflies saved the day. I think I would have done very well if I had the Trailfly Maxes, but next time. So that was shoes, and then nutrition was good, and then other gear, I just had loads of stuff. So how did it go? How did the race actually go? Should we talk about what went down on the day? Yeah, let's have a go. I'll try and be fairly brief, but it went well. The race itself went well. I really enjoyed the race. Maybe you've watched on my Instagram stories. If you follow me on Instagram, I posted a bunch of stories, all the videos that I took throughout the day. You will know what happened in the end. I bailed out at lap 19. Spoilers are rife in this one. But I want to talk about the race in more depth. I want to talk about what happened throughout the day and what I liked about it and what went wrong. Firstly, the format. The format of a looped course is becoming one of my favorite formats. This is something that I love. I love the camaraderie, the people that you're meeting, the fact that you are just able to run with the same people loop on loop, and you really find a group sometimes that you're all helping each other out. There's no need to go any faster. Why would you? Because you're all trying to time it. Some people will be trying to come in 45 minutes. Some people will want to come in 40 minutes. Some people like me will want to take 50 minutes out on the course. Everyone has their own idea of what they're aiming for, and you sort of find your people and you get chatting, and especially throughout the first day, you're chatting away to people, you're getting to know people, and it's just a lot of fun. So I love the format. The course itself was great. It's very runnable underfoot. All of the course was accessible by car, so if you stacked it, you could be saved by a medic. So it was a great course, very easy terrain, just gravel basically. So you're not worrying about sort of technical trails and that sort of thing. And then the weather was next level. I mean, it's always a bit of a gamble in late March. You don't know if it could be rain all weekend, or it could be like it was this weekend, which was sunny. And then throughout the night, there was just a nice cold mist. It was actually perfect. So the format was great. The course is great for this one. The weather happened to be great. And so I loved it. You can just really get into a rhythm. Didn't have to worry too much about like wet gear or any other additional elements. You're just trying to grid it through hour by hour and see how far you can get. So like I said at the beginning, this is going to be difficult for me to recall every moment in the race. I'm not going to be able to just go hour by hour. That's not going to work. But I'll do my best to sort of give a bit of a rundown of the day. So immediately on the first lap, I felt quite stiff, to be honest. With no taper, I had the last 3 weeks, I'd done like an 80k and a 90k week, and then I went into this race having done, I think, about 40k before the race. So I'd done some gym as well throughout those 3 weeks. I've been gymming. I've been doing some pretty serious Bulgarian split squats, and I was pretty achy. So I, as I said, underestimated the race. I didn't taper. So I went in actually already quite achy, which was a little bit concerning. But then after about the third lap, I was settled in. I just sort of settled into a bit of a numb feeling of, okay, my legs are just getting fed now. That's fine. We can just sort of settle into this. Everything felt fairly easy, sort of lap on lap, until about maybe lap 10, about 60k in, which makes sense, going over 50, 60k is a lot of distance on the legs. Food was going down well though. I was milling dates. I just had dates that I'd shove into my race pack, and I was just scranning them. I did have a peanut butter jam sandwich I think 9 laps in and got this crazy immediate boost, which was almost definitely because I'd had that entire sandwich. So that was great. I want to talk about the ultimate gear error that I made, though. I made an absolute rookie error that I knew about in theory, but now, my God, do I know about it in practice. And all I can say is bring Vaseline. Bring Vaseline. Monty saved me. Monty was a guy that actually did Lone Wolf Southwest, and he ended up bailing out of that one, I think sort of 17, 18 hours in, but I had the privilege of meeting him again at this one, and he saved me with his pot of Vaseline. But the mistake I made was that I wore some shorts that were brand spanking new and not washed. And about 12 hours in, I was starting to get a bit of a rash. Starting to get a bit of a chafe. And, oh man, I can't express to you how painful it was. I think on the 13th lap or something, just the discomfort was next level. So went into the night with serious discomfort. Monty saved me with some Vaseline, felt amazing, but it was a temporary fix each lap. And so I decided to put some leggings on under the shorts, put the leggings on, and was Vaselining all the way through for the rest of the race. And actually, that was problem solved. So, but until the problem was solved, it was painful. So there's a lesson for you. Do not wear anything new. And if it's new, make sure it's washed. Okay, moving on. Generally, food was good for me throughout the first 13 hours. But about 13, 14 hours in, just nothing really was all that appetizing. I was able to maybe fall back on... I was able to fall back on Sturker mixes, like carb mixes and that sort of thing for calories, as well as sipping on a Huel. But even, if I wouldn't be able to have an entire Huel bottle in the 10 minutes that we were resting, I maybe have half. So I had options. I wasn't getting no calories in, but when I looked at my array of food, not even the salt and vinegar crisps were that appetizing. That's always a struggle. I think no matter what, as long as it's not going to make you feel sick, I think getting some calories in there that you can get in there is a good move. Like you do have to force yourself to be consuming. But I was struggling a bit with feeling like any food. Lap 13 was when Rachel and her mother, the final women, both of them, decided to call it quits to end their stint on Mother's Day. So we had a winning pair, mother and daughter, on lap 13. The ratio of men and women on this race was there was a vast difference between the number of men and the number of women. I would love to next year or at the next event see more women toe the line, because this is such a great event for everyone. It is a strategic event, and women tend to do very well at strategic events, and I think there's just more room for serious competitors on the female side. So it was quite an early finish. I think they probably had more in them, but it just happened to be that all the other female competitors had gone home, and Rachel and her mum were last to finish on lap 13, and they called it and they went home on Mother's Day, which is very cool. So they saw it through midnight and then finished off. So congrats to both of you on that one. Lap 14, I decided to go a bit quicker. Actually felt really good going into lap 14. I let out a little hyped shout at the start line as we sent off. I think that annoyed a few people around me. But I just was hyping myself up, and everyone else, I felt like the energy was low, but I wanted to sort of pump it back up again. We still had 10 hours. We were over the halfway point. I thought it was worth celebrating that. And so I sped off because I needed to get an extra 10 minutes or so for the next break, because I needed a little bit of extra time in the bog. That would be the only reason I would recommend doing a lap a little bit quicker. I didn't know whether, I wasn't feeling like food because I just needed to sort of process the food that I'd eaten. But it was definitely a good move. I think just running a bit faster stimulated my body, and I was able to get back with 20 minutes or so to spare and visit El Baños for a shit, which was good. So, yeah, I mean, I was having some caffeine bullets too, which were great. All throughout, I was just having these caffeine bullets. I think once you get the caffeine in, you want to just keep having those. And throughout the night, it is difficult to stay awake. Sometimes that is my weakness, just feeling quite fatigued. If I can't get food in, I just need to be getting that caffeine in at the very least. So, yeah. It was around this time, though, after lap 14, I was really starting to lock in. It was the middle of the night. This is when James and I were in lockstep with each other. James is a young guy, 23 years old, who has only ever run a 53-kilometer race before, and that was only a few months ago. And James was quite inspirational. He really did lock in with me throughout the night, and I've spoken to him since, and it was from about 1 a.m., 13, 14 hours in, that he just wanted to quit every single lap. But he just told himself that he'd just do one more lap. And so he just went to the start line each time, every time, until the end. Congratulations, James. I take my hat off to you. You're a beast. Okay, so I was feeling great until 18. Came in from lap 18, feeling good. Feeling really good, in fact. Then, something happened. I stood up from my chair to go forward with lap 19, and my calf just felt really tight. And I limped up to the start line, immediately concerned. So what happened on lap 19? Well, the whistle went, I started jogging down the hill, and at my left calf just felt really tight. And I was like, ooh, maybe I'll just warm it up. Maybe it just needs a bit of warming up. So I took it easy. I sort of was running down that hill a little bit, but I knew that something was a little bit awry here. This was not normal. I did not feel how I felt on the previous lap. I felt much worse. My left leg was not feeling strong. Everyone else carried on at exactly the same pace as every other lap that they were doing. They all looked consistently as strong as they had done. But I felt like a different man. I felt like my leg was just not cooperating. And at this point, fear of 2023 started coming in. The idea of being too determined and staying hard and doing all of that stuff, ruining my prospects for the year, started overloading my brain. Every time I ran, it was just that bit too painful. It went from being regular sort of ache and discomfort to being something that was highly likely to get further damaged in the remaining 5 hours. But not only was it my calf, but I also had pain in my foot. My foot was always the issue that I was most fearful about. If I ended up having tendonitis again in my foot and it put me out for 10 months, I would be extremely upset with myself. If I had carried on for the remaining 5 hours just because I wanted to prove something to myself or to others or for any other external validation, I would have regretted it. It was not going to be a sensible decision. And I think I realized that. Reluctantly, I realized that I think my day was up. And I decided to stop. At this point, I was determined to get to 24. I had made the decision pretty early on that I was going to do the full 24. You're next to people who are egging you on. You have the reputation as well of winning the last one. And, you told yourself that you're capable of doing it. And so I was really thinking I'd be able to do 24 laps. But it wasn't for me today. Today was not the day. And so I called it at lap 19. And I thought to myself, well, there's no point running at home and getting in under 60 minutes. I think I'm just going to walk the rest. And so I spent the remaining 20 minutes, 25 minutes walking. And it was the longest 25 minutes of my life, to be honest. It was not fun. This sharpish pain in my leg, as well as pain in my foot, had started to seem a lot worse than they probably were, to be honest. And I think what was really going on in my head was this ultimate fear that I would ruin my chances of getting to the start line of Devil's Gulch, and it would be 2023 all over again. And so emotionally and physically, I was done. I needed to stop. So I got in, the race director, Paul, waiting for me at the top of the final stretch. I felt like I'd really let him down. I felt like I'd let people watching me online down. Stupid, I know, but real. But importantly, I really felt like I'd let James and Monty down. James was someone who had spent hours with me in silence, in lockstep, through the night. I wanted to help him get to the finish line. And Monty was someone who was running 24 laps to celebrate 24 months of sobriety after an extremely dotted history with addiction. And I wanted to run it in with him. We'd bonded over this attempt, but also October's attempt at Lone Wolf, and we'd shared laps together, and I wanted to run in for 24 with him. They didn't need me, but I wanted to be there with them in the final laps. I really did. But it wasn't to be. So then I waited at the end for the final 5 hours. I tried to take a nap. Didn't happen. I gave out medals and I saw them off for the final lap, and I loved the experience, to be honest, as someone who was on the sidelines cheering the rest of them on. I'd gone from really being upset about not being able to finish to just being amazed and in awe of these 9 individuals who all finished. And kudos to every single one of you. If any of you are listening right now, you're a champion. I just want to quickly jump in here because I've actually realised I didn't congratulate the winner when I was recording this originally. So I want to dedicate this 1 minute section to Joe Stapleton. What a beast. He finished the final lap in 29 minutes. That's a 6.7k loop with a fair amount of undulation, done about 100 miles, and he's doing that in 29 minutes. Incredible effort, an incredible win, a deserved win, and a really nice guy as well. So, well done, Joe. I just wanted to jump in here because I can't believe I didn't mention that on my original recording. But yeah, huge congratulations to Joe. It was great to meet him, run a few laps with him. A dark horse at the end there. It was a really exciting race to watch on the final lap. So I guess I want to finish just on some slight reflections then. In hindsight, it's all good. I made the right decision, for sure. It was difficult on the day, but within about an hour or two of finishing, I was basically over myself. I was quite upset on the final lap as I walked to the finish line. But this happens, man. This is the game we play. Sometimes it doesn't go well for us. There might be some people out there who never get a DNF. They're absolute beasts and they only get a DNF when they're doing a 200-mile race or something. And they're just, flawless. But that's not my story. My story is that I got a DNF during a backyard ultra and I'll probably get many other DNFs, because that's the game we play. We look forward to the failures as much as the successes, because it is in failure that we learn the most. And I have first-hand experience of that from this weekend. I feel like I've learned far more personally about what went wrong, but also how to handle when things don't go your way. I want to just emphasize the importance of smart choices. We see a lot of the opposite. We see a lot of a stay hard mentality, and I'll die before I quit, and I'll do anything to finish. I'll never let myself quit. All this sort of stuff. And there is value in that. There is genuinely value in that, because during a race like this, you need to have a no quit mentality. You need to be able to say, actually, am I really giving my all? Do I really have no more in me? Because on the other side of that discomfort, on the other side of that belief that you have no more in you, if you disagree with that belief, if you push on beyond it, you open up doors that you never would have before. I've spoken to James just today, had a bit of a back and forth on WhatsApp with him, and he didn't believe that he was capable of doing it. Every hour he didn't believe that he was capable of doing another hour, but he just went forward and did it anyway, and proved himself wrong in the best way. Hour after hour, he gave himself evidence that he's more capable than he first thought he was. Is that not a beautiful thing? To just repeatedly prove to yourself that you're more capable than you thought you were? I think it is. So it is important to have a no-quit mentality. But it's also important to know that there is a bigger picture. There are more important things at stake. And you shouldn't put longevity at risk. You shouldn't break yourself just to finish a race, an event. If you are planning out your calendar and there are B races and there are A races, maybe even there are C races, none of those races should be at the expense of your physical health, and none of the B races should be at the expense of the A race. So, if you're in a B race, if you're faced with a decision, you're faced with two choices, one is wise, one is unwise, determine which one is the wise choice and take it. And I believe I was able to do that, and I'm proud of myself because I wouldn't have done that before. And actually, in the few hours after quitting, I was on the phone to Lou, and she told me that she thinks it's growth and that I've matured. So that's good. I've learnt a lot. I'm proud of the decision I made. I'm not injured. My body feels good. But I now know I need to be more focused. I need to get more volume. I need to be more determined about preparing for this race. I need to be stricter with dealing with my partial flat foot, my partial flat feet. And I need to prepare for what will be an extremely difficult race with more than 7,000 meters of elevation gain over more than 100 miles in the Eastern Cascades of Washington State. So I'll finish off just with a few thank yous. I just want to thank every person at the race who I exchanged any sort of chat with. If you were there because you used the Runnable code and you came up to me and had a chat, I really appreciated that. It kind of made my entire experience, the fact that there were people there because they had seen my content and they had maybe listened to the podcast and they'd, grabbed the code. I'm ranting away now, but I really do feel like I made some new friends and I met some cool people. So thanks for everyone who came. I think it was a great event because of the people there. And anyone who messaged on Instagram about my race as well, anyone who sort of saw how I documented it and then kind of sent their commiserations and congratulations and all that good stuff, I appreciate you. And to the race directors, Paul, Matt, Nikki, you were so supportive of everyone, and you also supported me sincerely when I quit. And it takes a lot to stay up and safely run an event like this throughout the night, so kudos to all three of you. If you want to have a go at Lone Wolf, if you want to try it out for yourself, there is a code in the description here, or you can go to my Instagram and find it there, or you can go to Dynamic Adventures website. All the details are in the description. I can't remember what the code is, but it's there. Okay, now we're running into our second edition of RunBiz. RunBiz is a new segment on the show where we bring on a founder or representative of a business operating in the running space, making waves. We've got Lee Proctor from INOV8, and we had a nice chat about the lakes, the fells, INOV8's founding story, and the new direction that INOV8's going. I hope you enjoy it. I certainly did. Lee's a good guy. I went for a run with him not too long ago in the lakes. Here we are, our second edition of RunBiz. Okay, I'm here with Lee. Lee Proctor has been working for INOV8 for a very long time, and I had the privilege of meeting Lee a few months ago now. I don't know actually when it was, up in the lakes. If my research is correct, or if I remember rightly, you've been at INOV8 for 12 years, is that right?
Yeah, I'm one of the longest serving staff members there, I think. I joined off the back of being a journalist. I was a sports journalist, primarily writing about football. I'm very passionate about football, and I was working every weekend, and I think it just got a bit much for me, to be honest, with in terms of family and things like that. And an opportunity came up at INOV8. I've been a fell runner and a trail runner for about 35 years. So
nice.
It's in my blood, it's in my family's blood. My dad's a fell runner, my mum's a fell runner, my brother. So INOV8 was just a perfect fit for me, and they offered me an opportunity to use some of my writing skills and developed a role as a PR and communications manager at INOV8. And 12 years later, still there, still going strong and loving it.
So something's kept you there, other than the fact that it was a bit of a relief from the stress of journalism. What are the sort of key things that have kept you there? I mean, I remember the team is great. We went for a little run, didn't we?
No, it's fantastic. I mean, the funny answer, I guess, would be free kit. I don't think I've bought a pair of felt or trail running shoes in the last 12 years.
What a dream.
So I'm actually one of the bonuses of working for a brand like INOV8 is and one of the key testers as well of the new products. So myself and others in the team, we're based in Staveley in the Lake District, and we have an amazing array of trails out the back door of our office. And we literally all have stacks of shoes in the office, and you're encouraged to take them out at lunch times, after work, running the shoes, feedback. It's all part of the key process, and it's one of the major benefits of working for a brand like INOV8. You can use I'm taking my hobby of fell running and trail running, and I'm putting that into my work life. Don't get me wrong, there is a balance there that sometimes can be tricky in sense of, my family are runners and a lot of my friends are runners as well. So the conversation can often be weighted very much around fell running, trail running. And so sometimes I purposely try and shift that to, other interests that I have in life, because it can become a bit all consuming. But I'm not in the slightest bit complaining. To have a job where I work in an industry and a profession and outdoors that I love is, it's pretty much dream stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a similar thing. I've turned my sort of passion into a profession, but you have to find that balance, and anything anything can get boring if you talk about it enough. And
Yeah.
but I remember going to your office, visiting and meeting you guys, and there really was, like, if you're listening and you think like Lee's lying, this is completely true. There's, shoes out the front on the front door, ready to be taken out into the trails. A lot of companies speak about their kind of culture and what people supposedly tend to do at lunchtime, but you really do have these lunch breaks, right, where you all sort of go run the fells nearby.
Yeah, it is, and it's I know what you mean. Other brands will say that, and we genuinely do it, and we talk about how we live and breathe the brand, and it's really important because it invests you in the brand and in the product and in the ethos. So when we're hiring people, it is part of the process is to delve into their hobbies, interests, passions. If they've got that passion for the outdoors, or for running, or for gym, or for hike, then it really is a big advantage in that sense. I think yesterday, actually, some of the guys, I wasn't able to go out with them, but I think there was a team of 5 went out yesterday lunchtime. Nice. Because the sun was shining. There's an amazing trail that runs up to a little reservoir or tarn called Gurnall Dubs, and they've all run up there, and then they've gone in the water and dipped in.
No way!
Yeah,
amazing.
And then for a bit of cold water therapy, I think, and then straight back out and then run back down the trails. And I think they were only out like 55 minutes, but they all came back absolutely buzzing. And that productivity then gives to the afternoon, it does work.
100%. I think that's something that really helps me if I've, even just a walk, if I'm being really unproductive. An old boss of mine actually he was very good at this. He said, as soon as you feel like you're procrastinating or unproductive, close the laptop. And that was him saying, basically, close the laptop, step outside and get some sky time, which I guess is really sort of on theme with the brand. INOV8 is known for its connection to the outdoors, but also its kind of technical innovation, right? And what is the origin story behind the brand then?
Yeah, so INOV8 was founded in 2003, so 22 years ago now, by a chap called Wayne Eady, who remains at the helm of the company now. He's very much day to day still leading the way, and he spotted a gap in the fell and the trail running market for a lightweight shoe with incredible grip, and he set about with a guy called Graham Jordison. They set about designing a shoe. They both had a bit of experience in the industry, but it was a big risk that they were taking, and Wayne put his own money into this, and he was very entrepreneurial in how he did it, and he was very grassroots as well. So he got the shoe out at fell running races, at trail running races, out the back of a pickup van, talking to people, showing it to them, meeting retailers, trying to convince them about the product, and he did a fantastic job of that. But what really elevated it was there was the World Mountain Running Championships that year in Alaska, and the story goes that a runner called Melissa Moon went there as one of the favourites, and the night before the race it put down like a dump of snow and made the conditions on the course totally different to what everyone was prepared for, and Melissa didn't have a pair of shoes that suited the conditions, the wet, the mud, the snow, and she ended up borrowing a pair of INOV8's first ever shoes called the Mudrock 290s from a British athlete who was there, a junior. She fitted her size, and she won the race. She ended up winning the race, and these Mudrock 290s crossed the finish line, held them up in the air, and got all this photography of her at the finish, and everyone was suddenly like, what's this shoe? What's it all about? And it just it went on to really kickstart the brand from there.
That is a great story, and I guess testament to the grip. I personally can attest to the high-level grip technology that is in your shoes. Been known for pioneering grip technology since INOV8's infancy. What really does go into designing a shoe for unpredictable terrain?
Yeah, we always design our shoes from the ground up, so starting from the bottom and thinking about the grip pattern and the lugs, as we call them, or studs that you have on the bottom, how long they need to be, what shape they need to be, how many of them, how they're going to shed the mud or the trail, how they're going to give you the best grip, optimal grip possible, and we sort of work from there. And we then have different types of rubber that we use. So we have a really soft, sticky rubber that's perfect for your fell running and your muddy trail running. And then we have a harder types of rubber for hard ground trail running, because you want it to last longer and be more durable. And our premium one is called graphene grip, and we're the only brand in the world to use this material. Now, graphene is the strongest material in the world, and we teamed up with the National Graphene Institute in Manchester to develop this technology, and we've been using it since 2018 in our products. What it does is graphene. It's a miracle. This miracle material imparts its strength and power into the rubber, and it makes it more durable and stronger. But you don't lose in the sense of the tackiness and the grip. So it's just giving that real long-lasting durability to product, which is another thing that we're super keen on in making product last as long as possible.
Yeah, and there's quite a clear difference, I guess, between the shoes that INOV8's making for the fells and the shoes that you might find from other brands or just your standard kind of trail shoes. One difference I noticed is just the sheer size of the lugs. But I want to talk about what the difference is, in your opinion, as a fell runner of multiple decades. What is the difference between fell running and trail running? If no one's ever heard of fell running, what's the difference?
Yeah, of course. I would describe fell running as, if you think of running off path or off trail, there's fewer rules, if you want, in that sense. Fell running is very much originated in the north of England, where obviously we have the Lake District and the Peak District and other hilly areas such as that. Races can vary from 1 mile to 30 miles plus, and the most simple way is saying that you are running up and down hills as fast as you can. So you might have, more often than not, races are based between 5 and 10 miles, and there might be 3 or 4 checkpoints to reach, and you will then have some route choice element in that between the checkpoints. So whereas in trail running, obviously a lot is run and you stick to the trails, when you're out on the open fells, you have the option to find sheep trods, or even, getting off sheep trods into the heather and finding the optimal line that you think will make it quickest and most efficient. We go up and down really steep hills. It gets so steep. There's no way you can run up them. It's sort of hands on the floor, pulling yourself up these hills and then hurtling down as fast as you can. Be that on your bottom or on your feet, whichever way it means possible. Get down that hill as quick as you can.
Yeah, and getting muddy.
Yeah, that's all part of it. Yeah, especially obviously in the winter time. We races all year round. I think the Fell Running Association has a calendar of races, and I actually don't know the number, but there will be 300-400, maybe more races throughout the year. There's obviously, and then there's the British Fell Running Championships and the English Fell Running Championships, which are certain races that are picked out, and then the top guys and girls go and race in those. But as a sport, it's brilliant. It's just so retained its heritage and its ethos. And I'm fortunate to live in the Lake District, so I'm very close to a lot of the races and the running clubs around here who focus on fell running. And my friends, we all love going to fell races because there's quite a lot of them where you can enter on the day. So you turn up. It's probably based around a farmer's barn. The organisers will be in there. They'll have a checklist. It'll be for like £5 to enter. They'll check a few bits of mandatory kit that you'll need to carry. Waterproofs, hat and gloves and a map. And then there might be 150 of you on a start line, and then off you go. And you go and run. And there's obviously all sorts of different abilities, but you find your own place in that field, and everyone is competitive all the way down the field. And then you're all in club vests. So I run for a club called Helm Hill. There'll be other guys from Keswick and Ambleside. And we all run hard. And we get up to finish. It's all shake hands. How was your race? And what's beautiful about the sport is that the top runners, both the men and the women, they'll go up to anyone and ask them and say, how was your race? There's no egos. It's not about like, oh, I'm the best. I'm going to go and do my specialised warm down now where no one else is allowed to join me. You'll often see the winner going and warming down with someone who was near the back of the pack. and then they chat to each other about their races. Then we all go back to the farmyard or wherever it is we're based, and there'll be free tea and coffee and cakes that the local community have made, and you just have the crack about how your race went, really. And it's just a brilliant sport.
It sounds to me like there's just like a real culture that is precious to fell running, and the way even you speak about it is captivating. You know, everyone's humbled by the hills, and there's a real atmosphere around every small event. It's sort of grassroots, but everyone's sort of just getting involved, going hard, having fun, not really necessarily taking it all too seriously, but just enjoying getting muddy, getting dirty, getting out there. And in my opinion, as much as I can see, INOV8, you know, has been linked pretty closely with the fell running scene. And you even speak of kind of founding stories of showing locals these new innovative prototype shoes and trying to get people kind of into what they're trying to build. How do you maintain that connection with the fell running scene, which is so local to the lakes and the peaks in north of England, whilst expanding globally?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge which the business has met. We have formed relationships that are, you know, 2 decades old, which are still really strong, be that with key retailers, you know, famous retailers like Peatland Sports and Kong Adventure based here in the Lake District, and many others. We have those strong relationships. We also sponsor events, so races throughout the year. One of the biggest being coming up actually next month, called the Three Peaks Race. Nice. In Yorkshire. So that's a key one. We sponsor the championships. We help support the organisations who look after fell running, and we also support several athletes as well and fell runners. These aren't, you know, we have different levels of athletes that we sponsor as a brand. The fell runners are very much down to earth people who have jobs. You know, British and English fell running champion is a police officer. We've got lots of people doing jobs, and they fit their fell running in around their work and their life. So as a brand, we like to tell their stories as well. And you know, a lot of people can relate to that. It's we aren't the type of brand with huge resources and big deep pockets to go and pay multiple thousands of pounds for you know, the big name athletes. We're never going to be signing Killian Jornet or Courtney Dollwater. So, you know, we do it slightly differently. We look and work with people who are really down to earth, humble people who, you know, excel in what they do, but they have fantastic stories to tell.
I love it, man. And how are you thinking about sort of the path ahead then for INOV8? It feels, I mean, I've been talking to you and the team for a little while now. It really feels like there's sort of almost a new chapter for INOV8 approaching. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but it does feel like you're approaching something quite big in terms of new direction for the brand, for the business. What's ahead for INOV8? Yeah,
for INOV8, probably just to outline, I guess, a little bit of where we're at to where we're going, is that INOV8 is we split across three sports really, in terms of running, hiking and gym. And, you know, we trade in about 50 countries around the world now. So we've grown from that fell running hub and grassroots, which we still retain, and we still, you know, at our core, we've grown the business into, you know, these different aspects of running, and then hiking and gym. So in the US, for example, our biggest business is in the gym, and it's a sport. Wow. It's a sport called CrossFit. Mm-hmm. And obviously then moving into high rocks and things like that. So we do specific product for gym. So we have to find a balance between those three, and that's been key for us, sort of going forward and looking ahead to the future, working all three aspects of the sports into one message. And the brand we've tried to retain that, I say, that ethos around light, fast and natural.
Nice.
And what we're going to be doing going forward is really honing in on the natural element of that. So in 2024, we radically redefined the shape of our footwear into a more, you know, fit that better fits the foot. So it locks in at the heel and the midfoot, and then widens at the toes to give that comfort and that room, and allowing the foot to function more naturally, which is what we want. We always talk about the foot controlling the shoe. and not the shoe controlling the foot.
I love that.
Yeah, it's something actually Wayne, the founder, Kit, he's talked about ever since I've been in the business for sure. And it's, really important to him. And so our shoes are designed now. Every shoe that we do now is designed that way. In terms of natural performance, natural fit, and just, also foot health as well. It's not good for your toes to be slammed in the top of a shoe where, you're getting irritations and pain. It's a big move and a big step for us forward into this natural sphere. And it's very different to what a lot of other brands are doing. We haven't got any carbon plates in our shoes. We're not building huge stack heights in the foams. And we want you to feel natural, but that includes underfoot as well. So that element of ground feel and being at one with the terrain and the nature. There's so many shoes now in the market that it feels not dead underfoot's the wrong word, because there's obviously a lot of propulsion and forms and things, but you're not connected to the ground at all. And especially when you're trail running, that actually isn't a great thing, because you can become unstable and ankles can roll and things like that. We're much more about feeling at one with the ground and moving and moulding with the terrain, but obviously ensuring that you've got the protection and the comfort to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I so fundamentally agree with that philosophy so strongly. And I mean, you're producing it in the shoes that you're currently making. You've kindly given me a few pairs of INOV8s, and each pair, no matter what the stack height or style is, feels exactly as you describe. I feel connected to the terrain under my feet. And to be completely honest with you, I've worn plenty of other shoes that have been the opposite, the antithesis of connection to my environment. And, I lose proprioception. I don't know really where I'm landing. I lose control in my ankles. And I think that you're just doing the right thing. And it's a direction that other brands just aren't considering. Other brands, I've spoken to very large shoe brands, and they've admitted to me over a beer that they don't care as much for the athlete as they would love to, because the reality is they need to sell shoes, they need to sell performance, and it needs to look good, and it needs to sell, basically. And so you have these large stack height, nice looking, narrow toe box shoes that might make you run fast over roads, but they don't actually care for the athlete itself.
And that gives us a point. That's our point. Real point of difference for us. And we were called Innovate for a reason. We need to be innovative. We have to do things differently and stand out from the crowd. So it is a direction that we will continue to follow. And Wayne certainly is driving that element of the innovation. And the guys are working super hard on trying to think of new ideas and new ways forward, so that we can try and set perhaps the next tone of footwear, of where it's going to go. So it's really important to us, that.
Well, I'm wildly excited to see the next 12 months. I'm excited to keep partnering with you and focus on nature and the benefits of it. Thanks so much, Lee, for coming on to this edition of RunBiz. It's been a pleasure talking.
No, thank you very much for having us, Tommy. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation that I had with Lee a couple of days ago. INOV8 is really genuinely a brand I adore. They are, as you heard, built in the Lake District. They really know what they're doing. I've got some INOV8s sitting behind me that I haven't tried yet, that I'm excited to try. These are the new Trailflies, the Trailfly Zeros, which are their zero drop versions, and the Trailfly Max, which is just a little bit more cushioning that you might need for the longer distances. You can use the code Runnable at checkout for 15% off, as always. Thanks, Lee, for coming on the show. I appreciate your time. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed my little ramble about Lone Wolf. If you want to get involved in the next Lone Wolf event in October, the details are in the description. You can use a code there for 10% off that event. Have a go. It is a good event to try your hand at. I also want to mention the fact that I am preparing for Devil's Gulch. Devil's Gulch is coming up in July, and I couldn't be more excited, to be honest. I now have been humbled and am ready to really give a good crack at the next few months, getting in some good volume and good training to prepare for what will be a pretty difficult race. So go check that out if you want to join for their 50 miler or half marathon. If you're in the area, then there's a code there for you to use too. Thanks for joining for this episode of That's Runnable. Run the runnable. Keep showing up for yourself, and I'll see you next time.